gaining some ground, making a sound. How you like that? Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of On Point Live. My name is Sadi Maktoum, and I have a very special and very knowledgeable guest today, which will be a discussion about a subject which is very close to my heart, marketing. Today, we're discussing marketing's evolution, how marketing has evolved, because I was just sharing with the guest today, David, that I personally graduated 2008 doing my bachelor's in marketing management, which was a very specialized field, and my thesis was on a topic where how brands at this moment were trying to infuse themselves with the culture. And today we have our guest, which will bring that kind of expertise into this discussion. Today's guest is David Doyle. David Doyle is connecting from Cork. He's a marketing consultant. He's a lecturer in marketing and Cork University Institute of Technology. He's also somebody that is a podcast host, has been a marketing consultant, running his own marketing agency. He has tried to niche himself down in the food and the bottling industry. And we're going to discover more about his passions, his knowledge, and his expertise in this field, and how he sees this evolution going towards a positive trend. And also, we discuss careers in marketing. If you have any questions, please feel free to put a comment below. We are mainly live in three mediums: LinkedIn, YouTube, and also Facebook. All these communities can participate equally, and I'll take questions in our end of each section that we cover. Good evening, David. Thank you for joining us on this Monday evening. How are you doing?
No problem. Absolute pleasure. All good. Monday. So all good. End of a Monday.
Yeah, it's like usually, Mondays are my go-to planning and deciding how my week will flow as well. I was very pleased to see that you have a similar, plan on point when it comes to keeping your Mondays cluster free, because these days, if you can get the Mondays right, as my mentors keep saying, you will get the entire week done in a very productive manner. Because if this planning goes perfectly, all these things will jump into the right place. So I have created the title of the podcast episode as "The Evolution of Marketing," and I initiated this conversation mentioning that back in the days, very early when I was starting personally as a student, my first internship, I just finished my, topic that how brands are trying to be more culturally relevant. From 2008 to now 2022, we know that every brand, every social media platform is not trying to be culturally relevant. If there's no cultural relevance, there's no brand. The brand voice is gone, the brand elements are gone, and the brand will find itself in a very alien location where they won't even be the right personality fit for a lot of consumers. David, I wanted to start this discussion saying, as this is about the careers for people in marketing, can you share initially your story and also about what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
It's kind of the typical cliche that a lot of people say when they're either in business or marketing, that they kind of fell into it. But I actually did. So I know you're up in Dublin yourself. So I'm originally from Wexford. I moved up to Dublin to study and pursue actually music and event management, and that's the trajectory I was going on. But I kind of started doing, whether it was modules or little bits of social media, and just kind of started enjoying that whole side of things, and ended up being very, very fortunate to work on a project with Bank of Ireland coming towards the end of my time in college. And that was all based around creative marketing, promotion, internal communications, all that kind of stuff. And then my background, obviously, music wasn't going to pay the bills, so I was always working in hospitality, so kind of pubs, clubs, bars, restaurants. I kind of naturally always kind of fell into kind of, I suppose, a leadership role, kind of management role. And when I moved down to Cork, And I kind of took it from there, I suppose. I was working in bars and clubs, I was running events still at the time, but I wanted to do something in marketing because I was starting to enjoy it. So I went and approached a couple of people for advice on what to do, and I ended up going out to Cork Institute of Technology at the time, now Munster Technological University, and I ended up studying digital marketing, and then went on to do a master's in digital marketing strategy a couple of years ago. So that's how I kind of, as I said, I literally kind of fell into marketing from there, not leaving school, I suppose, wanting to study it. So up until today now, I've kind of I've done freelancing work as a social media manager. I fell into, when I was working as a freelance, I went into O'Flynn's, gourmet sausage company here in Cork for 3.5 years. That was a marketing manager role, which turned into probably more of an operations role there. As I said, kind of come around of the hospitality. And then went on from there to work with Velo Coffee Roasters for a year and a half or so. And then as of, we'll say, the new year this year, decided to take the bold leap and jump back out on my own again. So kind of looking after, I suppose, business development for brands with a focus on marketing. But obviously looking at all aspects of marketing. So kind of being a one-stop shop, I suppose. So I have a kind of a team that I work with. So whether it's web development, whether it's design, branding, ads, all that kind of stuff. So like, I kind of bringing back that kind of manager role. I manage the projects for whatever the business needs, and work with the right people to do the job.
That is so cool. If I say, you took the bold move this year to step back and, start your own thing, what was the main objective behind it? Because, I would love to explore that opportunity where you decided to go out in business, because currently when somebody's graduating, a lot of people would also want to discover what does it take for somebody to start their own business, and especially like exploring the formula, like can a fresh graduate with a little experience with freelancing, should he or she be looking at starting their own thing, or should they try and align some work experience, as you mentioned, like you've done some projects, you gain experience, and now you've decided that you're comfortable enough to, go into business?
It's an interesting one, and to be honest, it's up for discussion and debate every day. I was only speaking to someone today here. I work in a co-working space in Cork called Republic of Work, and I was actually speaking to them about this idea of, are we living in an entrepreneurial bubble, I suppose, is what they were saying to me. And I was saying we kind of are, but I suppose a lot of people that go into the industry that we are in terms of marketing, to me anyway, personally, it's based on experience. It has to be based on what you've done, what you've achieved, and have you seen results out of work you've done. And more so, in my opinion, if you're working on your own, if you're working for yourself, you kind of have to show that you've achieved success somewhere, I suppose. So for people that are coming straight out of college, like, you can be very lucky, you can fall into a good situation, but I do recommend that you go and get some sort of experience for yourself. Now, I do a lot of talks with colleges, whether it's I lecture in College Com, I do a bit of lecturing in small time lecturing in UCC, University College Cork, and I do guest lecturing, and I'm always asked the question, about kind of advice for students leaving and stuff like that. And I would always say it's a growing industry, it's a growing competitive market in relation to students leaving. There's a lot of people coming into the industry. I don't know whether it's being seen as cool and trendy, or if that's the industry to go into, but I think when people get into it, they realize there's a lot of work involved in it. So they kind of get a shock, I'd say, soon enough. But but I do think, like, especially for people starting out, they find it hard, because literally for the reasons I just said, that whether you're a marketing manager looking for someone to join your team, whether you're a business looking for a marketer to come on board, you're looking for people with experience, you're looking for people that have a track record. And it's very, very hard sometimes for a new graduate to pick up work, because they don't have a lot to show. So I always kind of say, like, if you can get involved early doors with someone, maybe it could be a family, a relative that has a business, maybe it's a local, group or association that you can kind of get involved in and just start trying out things, and getting involved. And I don't ever, advocate for, we'll say, unpaid internships or anything like that. But unfortunately, at the start, you kind of have to build up a little bit of experience to get yourself ahead of the curve, more so. So it is worth
And
looking at ways to get involved.
that's a very solid point, David. I wanted to, just ask one more detailed question. Like, I have seen a couple of graduates all doing the same, level of graduation or diploma. There are a lot of kids that are very smart in doing so as well, because I've seen a couple of them would turn their internships into these freelance projects. They'll find these avenues, maybe reaching out to community centers, locally placed, and tell them that I can, run your social medias, or I can, help you out with something. Try and offer something of value to the other people, and then getting that internship experience for their resume set for, by the time they graduate. Do you have any similar suggestions for, young graduates that are now in marketing? They want to build a portfolio by the time they graduate. What are the avenues they should look into, apart from, reaching out to a certain brand and, offer something to be done? Like, maybe, as you mentioned, like, it sounds bad, but at times you have to offer free of cost. And yeah, I wanted to add this for, for every listener out there. When we say free of cost, we don't mean out of your own pocket. So
Mm.
I've personally done free of cost work where I would say my cost is free, but if I have to rent, a certain equipment, you pay for that. If I have to, travel to a certain location, you will pay for that. It doesn't mean that I'll come to the location, I'll hire the, people, I'll hire the equipment and do that all out of my pocket. It is just my work, editing, my expertise. They are free of cost. And that's where you try and build that win-win.
Yeah, of course, of
So
course.
yeah,
Yeah,
David,
you're not going to
I
go
agree with you.
running with euros. You're not going to run €100 worth of Facebook ads or anything like that on their behalf. Do you know?
Exactly,
No, no, no.
exactly.
It's more
Yeah,
so
yeah.
offering you as a resource your time. Yeah.
Mhm.
But other ways you can get, you can kind of, as I said, get yourself a little bit ahead of the curve. Is, you know, I, it's a kind of a it's a word that's up for discussion, I suppose. The whole area of like personal branding. And as we said, that's kind of what a lot of people are going down the road of now, is they're trying to give themselves this personal brand, and when it comes to hiring, you kind of have to dig beyond that, and as I said, see is the CV or the portfolio
Mhm.
living up to the name of the personal brand. It's like any business. You could have a lovely brand, but are they going to fulfill their promise? So
Yeah.
I do always say start now to students that are in colleges. Because if you look, like, we'll take this as a virtual classroom, for example. If they look around the classroom, there could be up to 200 people in the room, depending on where they're going to college. In a sense, you're in competition with 200 odd people beside you. So, you kind of need to build up a little bit of your name for yourself early doors. And there's other things like you can get involved in. Like, you're going to come out obviously with your qualification, whatever you're studying at the time. But then there's other ways of getting yourself a little bit more skilled in terms of, like, the Facebook courses, Google Analytics, all these kind of big software, the big engines we're using all have certs and educational courses, and then there's other educational courses online, that you can take part in, and it just gives you that little bit of an edge, that you're not just coming out with your degree, masters, whatever you have,
Yeah.
that you have a few other bits to back you up. Now, the problem with a lot of these courses is we could take them today, we could get a lovely cert this evening, it could change tomorrow. And that's the other side of marketing and digital marketing, that it changes so much that we have to be on our toes. A new platform, a platform could shut down tomorrow, a new platform could come out tomorrow. And we've seen that in the last couple of years now with
Yeah.
TikTok, we'll say. So you have to be on point. You have to be always kind of looking out for what's coming down the tracks, and just kind of researching and just being aware of what's going on.
Yeah. And very well said, David. The uncertainty, especially around marketing and tech jobs, and marketing, as we're actually providing service, which is to a certain platform, which is to a certain website, social media, accounts, which are evolving on a daily. It allows you to work with a lot of ambiguity, and there's a lot of uncertainty. I personally was one of those students which would always bug my professors. How do I deal with that uncertainty? It's giving me anxiety or stress all the time as a student. How do you learn to deal with these things? Because uh, marketing, I would guarantee, just like any other field these days, you have to constantly evolve. If you're not constantly updating yourself or not understanding the new trends in the market, within 12 months you might not be relevant as a service provider to, the biggest brands in the, industry. And we're seeing this first nature. How do you deal with that kind of uncertainty as somebody that is providing these services which are always evolving?
Yeah, I just think like that's when the experience comes in. Whether you can kind of confidently stand behind what you've done. When it comes to another side, I'd always recommend is having a little bit of a bubble of support. So having your little network, and I would have a little network of people that work in my industry. And in a sense, I'm doing the same job as them. They're just doing it in a different brand or a different business. And we would regularly meet up, or we'd back and forth on WhatsApp, or we'd ask them for advice. Even something simple as I'm involved still in the WhatsApp group from when I done my
Great point.
masters, and we're
Yeah.
still, if we need advice on something, or if one of us needs to throw an idea past, there's whatever 15 of us in the group, they'll throw in,
Amazing.
what do you think of this, guys? So it's creating that bubble that people you can trust, that you can go to and
Yeah.
ask for advice. And what stems on from that then a little bit further is looking for someone like a mentor. And I always think that's hugely important, and especially in the early days of start, if you're serious about it and you want to build a career for yourself. There's one thing in my head of working, and there's nothing wrong with working, but there's another level of building a career for yourself, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication. So if you're going down that route and you want to rise up the ranks and build a name for yourself, it is important to bounce ideas off people, or the other side of it is find a mentor that you can meet once a month, or depending on who the person is, it could be someone that you can only meet once a year. It depends, but like it has to be someone that you trust, and it necessarily doesn't always have to be someone that's 10 steps ahead of you, or in their career, or 10 steps ahead of you in business. But it might just be someone that thinks, that can analyze things in a different way, and kind of look at your story and your path and your journey, and kind of just literally for someone to bounce ideas off. And I think that's another valuable thing, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Such a solid point that you mentioned. Like this is exactly my recommendation to a lot of youngsters as well. That experience is when you see such turbulent times or such novel problems in a workplace, and so important is to have that social network. Like if people start building these social networks from just like you mentioned, like you're still in a WhatsApp group with people which you graduated and did your masters with. That's a great point. Like having those people around you, because in most situations you don't even have to have the right answers. You need to know the right questions to ask and the right person to ask this question to, and you will get the answers. Because if you have a social system, like a support system where you can bounce the same idea with, some of them might give you a solution like, hey, why this will work, why this will not work, might give you an idea which works better in your region or in your territory. I did my master's in Australia. Most of the time, there are practices that are taking place in a different geographical location, which are either ahead of your time, either behind your time. So you guys can also like pick those trends up. Like, hey, this is what's happening. Facebook just launched a new feature like in US today, or TikTok just started 10-minute videos in a certain region. That is something that will come to this region in about 3 weeks time. But you guys can start having those discussions if you have a support system in Australia. Hey, what went well? What are some of the commercials that are utilizing this experience best? In a different region, you can try and play along and use those circles in the benefit for you.
And
Amazing.
that's actually another good point there when you say about Australian. Straight away, it's almost like that. Go back to that kind of perception thing. Straight away, the minute you say you were in Australia and you were working or studying in Australia, it's kind of almost stepped up a little bit. That I'm traveled and cultured, and I've gotten different experiences. And that's actually something another friend of mine who would be a lecturer, and we might talk about in a while, is the guy that I do a podcast with, and he always says that, like, that if you ever have the opportunity to travel and work, and get a job elsewhere, and come back after a year or two, that
Yeah.
will stand to you. Now, it's not in everyone's interest, to go and move away or whatever, but it just does give it. Now, obviously, it's in the whole building a career, and you're going to want to go to somewhere to work at a decent level job to make it worth your while. But like,
Yes.
it is worth it when you come back to your little network. If you do come
Yeah.
back, some people might not want to come back, but it will stand to you. It is something that could be worth an avenue worth exploring for some people.
It is. It changes the entire dimension, or your mindset. It completely changes you, the way you start looking at things. You learn from different people, from different places, and that's one of the biggest I think positives from my experience during my studies abroad in Australia, was the people I met. Because where I was bringing in a complete different perspective, even though the books were the same, we were all going through the same exercises. Every one of us was doing things different, and doing things differently made us like come up with like, oh my god, yeah, it's like just the way he or she looks at this problem is just creatively innovative for all of us to learn from. And I wanted to like add, like, today, in this world, because of work from home or the digital space and the digital nomads being normal, a friend of mine and myself, we were discussing about the 4 hour work week by Tim Ferriss. And when that book was launched like a couple of years ago, and it talks about like, hey, follow your passions even if you're giving away that normal 9 to 5 job. It talks about travel more, take, or bring a lifestyle into your space, where if you want to start a podcast, do so. The amount of ideas that were impossible to do when that book was launched, and now
Mm.
the amount of like starting a podcast. Like, I was discussing with a friend, I want to start a podcast, did not know how to do it, told me, hey, have you seen about StreamYard? Have you known about Anchor, .fm? 5, 6 different free tools, and all of a sudden I'm set for a podcast, and I'm having these guests from different geographical locations. 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible. I was like, I need to get sponsors to pursue my passion. I need to set up a studio to pursue my passion. I need to have very expensive equipment to pursue my passion. Now it's very easy. Like, now the amount of gadgets that you can get for 500 quid, the Sony camera that you get, 10 years ago, that would have costed you 9 grand to get the same quality output into your devices and everything. And these phones have also like turned into these media machines. And that brings me to the perfect segue to the biggest transition that we're seeing. The biggest branding, or I would say marketing companies, now need support from the youngest generation, because when it comes to experience, that is one point where I've seen the newest trends in social media as a marketing field, is where the youngest audience members that have used those mediums, that have
Mhm.
taken the trends up by storm, or know how to utilize that to their advantage to grow their brands. Now we've seen a shift where youngsters are more in demand, more than ever, by biggest brands to acquire, run their social media brands, and bring more content into the newsstream, which is more culturally relevant. How do you see that landscape running, and how do you see this evolve in the long term? Because we know that the marketing director might be somebody super experienced, but those brand managers or marketing managers or content strategists are mostly youngsters that have proven that they know how to run these channels. They know how to
Mhm.
even create compelling stories, and now they're taking very, very high paid and important roles within these organizations, which at times raises the question: is it a new trend? Is it here to stay? Or is it something that is just, I would say, here for the time being?
That's a really good discussion, and I think so. When you think about, as you said, they're youngsters, they know how to work social media, they know what is relevant, they know what content works, they know what's of interest to normal digital consumers. Um,
Yeah.
what they might be missing is the whole element of, well, what makes someone convert? what makes someone buy. And we go down almost down that kind of consumer behavior psychology route. That strategist, and that's sometimes what could be missing nowadays when it comes to the content creator side of things. That it's understanding that there's something else in play here. That there has to be the strategy side of it. So it's all well and good going out pumping out loads of content on, we'll say, TikTok there, and you're getting hundreds if not thousands of views. But the thing is it actually a benefit to the business? Is it actually, yes, of course it's going to drive a brand awareness, and that's mainly where my area is in terms of brand awareness. But at the end of the day, brand awareness does have to turn into sales. Otherwise you won't have a business next year to keep creating that content for it. So that's where I think it's having that mindset that yes, you can drive all the traffic to your website, but if your website is not functional, if your email marketing is not working properly, if you're and it's not all digital. I'm not all digital. My main area probably would actually be more down the experience side of it in store. So when I worked with a company here in Cork for a few years, called O'Flynn's Gourmet Sausage Company, worked for about 3.5 years. That's what I said there a while ago. And one of the areas I looked at with that business was, like, we could have pumped loads of money into social and adverts and stuff like that, but they were a local business that had a fantastic name, a fantastic brand, and had 2 physical locations here in the city. And they were experience driven, that people, when they came to them, needed that experience. So that's what we looked at, and we kind of, almost moved the digital aside for a moment, that you can pump all the money you want into any sort of online advertising or content. But if someone walks into your physical store or even picks up the phone, if someone says hello to them wrong, all the money is wasted. And that's what's important in marketing, that you have to look at all aspects of the business. You have to look at, you might have come across the term, in terms of like 360 marketing, that every touch point of the consumer, they all have to be consistent. So that's kind of where I would look at things, as all the touch points consistent.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant point, David, because looking at the holistic picture, just the way you mentioned, like, there are brands that do amazing when it comes to their customer, I would say, branding. And the minute you walk into the store and the way people welcome you, or the environment that is given to you, maybe the customer experience or the way it has been merchandised within the store, or just the environment on the floor, cleanliness becomes a part of your branding if it's done unwell. And on my last podcast, the guest mentioned that their clients' biggest I would say sale came from out of door marketing, like leafleting. And they were surprised, like, in the day and age where a lot of people are just focused on, and it's also like sometimes it's mindless focus on social media. I've thoroughly followed this channel called Refine Labs on LinkedIn. They create solid content on sales and everything regarding that. They have a channel that creates a lot of content on that. The biggest problem, and I would say the consistent most discussion that happens on that sales pipeline discussion, is companies following a very different marketing approach. But when they get those, I would say inquiries, they're inbound inquiries that never result into the right amount of sales, because people are not interested. They loved the TikTok video. They loved your, YouTube video. But at the end of the day, they are not going to make a buying decision out of that. It was entertainment for them, rather than your brand might be all about education and then bringing people into the loop. You might not look at getting 1 million views. You might have to target your audience in a way that I'm targeting only 15,000 people, but they 15,000, if they look at this, engage with this, if they find this valuable, they might sign up for something which turns into a sale. So it's a very different experience. And I think that you nailed it well, the way you say it has to be all pieces of the puzzle. And every business
the further point to put on that, I think, is it's not so much even all the channels, but go back to the very basics of what we all learned day one in terms of marketing. Digital marketing. I take that word digital out. We're living in a digital age, so it's marketing. But go back to that original point of it's people. So like, you have to, the most work should go in and who's my target audience, who's my audience, who's my customer. So like, if, as you said there, if a leaflet drop is the best resource for your business, that you should pump all your money into that, and that's what's going to bring the sales, go for it. Do you know, just because we're living in a digital age, it doesn't necessarily mean all we should do is focus on social media, because our website, because we need a website, but we shouldn't focus so much on social media. And that's another point of this kind of, we talked about there about the students kind of coming onto the scene. They have to understand that it's not all digital, that billboards still work for some companies, bus campaigns still work for radio, TV. Do you know, I'm working with a company there at the moment, and one of their biggest forms of marketing is direct mail through the post box. Do you know, and that works for them year on year. So like, you go back to that whole thing of people, you know, who is my audience, and go for them, whatever channels or platforms that you're going to get them on the best. You know.
Definitely, and that comes with your understanding. I think you have worked with a lot of businesses now. How much is the research part in designing the campaign for your I would say partners or your business I would say prospects? How big in your entire process of marketing, designing a campaign, the project management for a client, how big is the research part in that?
I think it depends on what size the company is. And when I say that, I mean, like, you know, is it a small local company, or is it a more of a, we'll say, you know, national corporate brand, or corporate or national brand? And the reason why I say that is, the bigger the brand, generally there's a bit more of a team, and you kind of can delegate different areas, you can bounce off people for ideas, you can give a little bit more time to be structured, if that makes sense. Now, that's not saying that a smaller business can't be structured, but the problem is it's generally a one-person show running the whole marketing team and everything else that they do on the side generally. So I think that's where the whole research thing sometimes can fall down, because when a smaller company, they kind of, it's on the cuff stuff, or it's, we know the seasons or the events that work for us every year, and we'll focus on those, and they kind of go through the motions. And that's where you see, like, market research companies, they're not cheap, a lot of these companies. So a lot of smaller companies can't afford to invest in that side of stuff, or some smaller companies can't afford generally to invest in maybe some of the worthwhile agencies there are there to work with. So they're kind of, it's a fine line, you know, you kind of have to get that bit bigger to be able to do it. No, there's not necessarily saying you can't do market research, because once you have customers, once you have an audience, you can do market research. You know, whether it's, if you built up enough relation, as I said about a physical store, if you built up a relationship with customers, sit them down, ask them, you know, I'm bringing out a new product, I'm thinking of changing this, I'm thinking of getting rid of this. Ask them for feedback, and that's the most valuable feedback you'll probably get, you know, and that's important. And any business can do that. It's just about working within your means, you know, and what you can work with.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I wanted to touch upon one more thing, and then we will go from the business side of marketing things to just discussion on one of the biggest social media platforms. I would not say the biggest. I would say the fastest growing social media channel, which has just created a lot of buzz. I'm gonna talk later on about TikTok and their strategy of implementing 10-minute videos. What do you think about that one? But I wanted to know, what are your I would say, what is your recommendation? I think we have a couple of people like Tufani. We have Sadi saying that's a great session. Muiz also left a comment saying this is the most useful, informative show in my whole newsfeed. That's very good to know, Muiz. And Zubair left a comment saying digital marketing has taken over the entire marketing world. My question is, what would your advice be to a new business with small marketing budget to approach marketing? So, David, I think you've already covered a small aspect of this, but just to bring all those points together.
Yeah, I think like, it's one of the words, you know, most marketers are going to say, right, what's the budget? Right, brilliant, I'll work with it. But most small companies, you know, or new businesses don't have a budget, you know, they literally don't have a budget to work with, you know, and that kind of word even scares them. So you kind of got to go in with the attitude of no budget and be creative and see what, as I talked about earlier, use what you have in your means, use what you can, you know, and be aware of what's happening in the business, and don't go in and pressure them for a budget, So you kind of got to use the channel. So as I said, go back to phase one. Who are the people I'm trying to get my brand in front of, or products or services in front of? What channels do they use? Right, I'm just going to start organically. Unfortunately, if you don't have a budget, it's the only way you're going to go. But I'm not a big fan of pumping money into adverts and stuff, because then yes, your sponsor posts, your adverts are going to get way more traction. But the thing is, you should be running your social day to day. So if your day to day organic content is not getting any traction, well then it doesn't look great. Like it just doesn't come across great. So use the channels you have. If we all talk about the should we be on all social platforms? Well, no. So I'm working with a food business there at the moment. We're only on Facebook and Instagram. We're just starting to play around with a bit of TikTok. Is it going to bring sales? Probably not, but it's just more so to see where it goes. It's having a bit of fun with it. It creates a bit of content that we can put on stories. But in terms of the business and driving sales, it's Facebook and Instagram. Are we going to go worry about Twitter? Are we going to go worry about LinkedIn? Not for the moment. Maybe LinkedIn, because there's talks maybe of we're going to do corporate packages. Well, then LinkedIn's the place to be, and to start working on that platform. So when you're working with a small budget, just keep the budget small, because you already talked there about, in terms of volunteering for businesses, and that manpower, that resource of time, is a big resource, So you alone working as a marketing person in a business, that's costing the business money. So anything else on top of it is adding to the budget that you don't have in the first place. So just it's very, very important that when you're looking for someone to work in a business at that level, that you be very, very picky about who works in it. And sometimes they have to be able to bring a bit of added value. So like I talked about, if I go into a business, I'm bringing the marketing side of it, but I'm also probably bringing the business development and the kind of the management side that I've worked at for years as well. So I kind of get a different approach across a couple of areas. I'm not just coming in as a social content creator, that's my area and don't ask me about anything else, So at the smaller levels, you need to look for people that can bring in a bit of added value.
That's a solid answer, David. I absolutely loved it. The way you've pinpointed everything. First, we don't have to be everywhere. Second, most important thing is know your niche. I completely understand that, when you have a small budget, not alone like going into, all spaces will not create any results, but also give you more frustration than, looking at one specific area and then develop something out of it. But I realized when you have a smaller budget, you're very result focused, and you will at times get frustrated when you don't get that traction, because marketing is mostly about consistent effort to get attention of your audiences. It's not about I ran a really good campaign and now I'm going to disappear and somehow the sales is going to fall down to our website. It's if we are on a short budget, my experience working with fast food brands like Domino's and Apache in local country, Ireland, is organic. Go organic. I would say, like, if you have a small budget, consider yourself that you don't have budget. Look at where do we stand, what is our branding, and every customer that walks in is your best branding strategy. If he goes back home and tells two of his best friends that I had a lovely experience working with this brand, he's going to bring in more customers than any other marketing strategy will. So, treat every customer as the best, marketing strategy that you can have. They should get the best, budget or investment of your time and customer experience. And mostly I've seen like a lot of brands will not know how to currently evaluate their marketing efforts. So it always has to be like, this much money went in, this much result came back. If there's no result on investment and return on time and investment both together, that's a very bad marketing strategy. It's not working. And always try and calculate that return on investment at least on a quarterly basis. I've seen that there will be companies that will say, hey, our last month's marketing campaign did so good, not realizing that it was Christmas time. Everybody had money. Everybody was spending. then there will be other people that will try and calculate like, hey, this did so well last year and it's not doing that well. It's like, look at the global perspective. What's doing well this year wouldn't be doing last year, because last year, due to pandemic, a lot of normal practices won't work. People were not able to even come to your store. So, those things will definitely come. My question now will be, how do we try and work collaboratively with other businesses in our own field? As you mentioned, like, you're already doing it. I've seen the biggest gap, the biggest weaknesses in some of those small businesses that have not evolved in a decade or even more, is they want to continue working alone. What are the cons of doing that, and what are the pros of working collaboratively with other businesses in the same field together?
Yeah, I think when you start working with other businesses, it puts a good feeling in the customers, the audience that are looking at it. But I'll give one example. Obviously, we've gone through the whole COVID life for the last couple of years, right? COVID was obviously a huge destruction to so many businesses, but then there's other businesses that hopped on it and made it positive, and worked with it and done what they could to do. So what I love seeing in the last couple of years was the innovation coming back, and I always say it was kind of like all those business owners were putting their entrepreneurs caps back on, because as you said there, they were kind of going through the motions for many years before, and now they have to think differently. So I've seen a lot of local businesses partnering up with each other, whether it was a local restaurant, that they couldn't, we'll say the whole rule came in that you couldn't eat food, on premises, and you couldn't, some kitchens had to close down, all this kind of stuff. So next thing, you were seeing restaurants and bars teaming up together. You were
Welcome back. So we're looking at. I think there was a small disruption on our live stream. We're gonna get David back on the stream, but what we're discussing in collaboration, because a lot of time what we don't realize is marketing is, or even building a brand is, a collaborative effort. If you're going to compete with every other business in your field, you're going to compete with almost more than half the market. But if we're looking at, not competing with the other businesses, a lot of time people don't realize, David, I was just mentioning, I think there was a small disruption, of us automatically got, kicked out of the stream. But I was mentioning that when we talk about collaboration, what I've seen is, if you specialize in one part of the business and you get a very big project, it allows you all to mint that. We can have a SEO specialist, a small marketing agency. We can have a content writing business. We can have a video production business, and we can have somebody that does marketing research. If I work alone and just be with the mindset that, hey, David is my competition, and then Alan's my competition, and Daniel's my competition, we never would even understand that, hey, I've got this big project. I alone cannot handle it. And just because I don't want to miss it, and I don't want us to miss it, we're all going to put a proposal together, and we're going to go in as a community. We're going to take it. We're going to handle this. This part will be given to this specialist. And we bring a proposal together and do that. And I've seen that this is where 97% of all startups fail. They don't realize the power that if you go alone, even though the brands might have 100% confidence in you, David, but their brands or their businesses might be so big that they would never get the approval from the executive side. Like, hey, I would love to get David on board, but rather than we giving that business to David, we might hire David for the entire year as a project manager or something like that. And that is the power of collaboration, something that I wanted to discuss. But David, you were mentioning about how collaboration can allow us to redefine and even get that advantage.
No, I think move on. That was a great point, like, about collaboration in terms of marketing, and even when we talked our whole thing about the students coming out and finding their areas that they're interested in, like that's exactly what I do now. And I think we've all kind of seen an evolution in the last couple of years of the whole gig economy. That people are kind of, whether they're double jobbing or whether they're getting involved in, work that's paid on the side, or paid for literally, like we've seen the brew and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of marketing and digital marketing, we're seeing a lot of people entering this industry where they're freelancing, and whether it turns into full-time jobs, which it has for me, that it's a great industry to be in. And in terms of collaborative, like I work now, I'm just thinking with one guy in specifically, he's my go-to branding design guy, and he gets how I work, I get how he works, and it takes that awkwardness out of the starter trying to figure people out. He knows exactly, if I say something and describe it badly, he knows exactly what I'm on about. So working with these teams and working with your go-to people makes you more successful and makes you better at what you do, because as you said, like, I have a team now I go to for my marketing efforts, that I don't do it all myself, but then people are hiring me for the the project management side, we'll say, that they know there's a good team involved there, and we'll get the job done.
No, I completely understand. And then you also get to outsource the things that you don't enjoy doing to win the time back and give that work to somebody that enjoys it. Because I personally had previously, there has been time where I've hired a relationship manager. People will be like, where do you get the money? I'm like, there's no money involved. I really signed a contract with him where he brings in business, takes 30% off the cut of the business, and that allows me to not get emails directly. That allows me not to get a speaking invitation and then convince the other party saying, look, if you hire me you get this benefit. He will convince them, he'll sell me, he'll put me on a stage, and he's getting the commission out of it. So it becomes a win-win for both of us, and I don't have to go through that clutter of organizing these business meetings. So you get to create a win-win for all the people. That is the biggest shift that I've seen. And it's always the abundance mindset will always put you in a better situation, no matter what scenario it is. If it's the COVID scenario into play, a lot of businesses did lose a lot of money. A lot of business turned that into an opportunity, as you mentioned. I have a case study. I will try and share that in the comment section on our LinkedIn feed, that this live feed is. There's a business in New York. It was a pizza business, and this blew my mind. It was a pizza business in the midst of crisis in Chicago. Their pizza business closes. This guy has no money. He goes on to YouTube. That's his own interview to a news journalist organization, and he said that I taught myself how to create those medical shields that they use in the hospital.
Yes.
So I realized that I have this pizza oven, and it has the same temperature required to bend those shields. So I ordered the raw material. I started producing those shields, which were highly in demand, and there was lockdown in China. So after COVID, this guy has his pizza business back on, but now he also creates the same medical shields till this date, and he has developed an extra business. And I'm gonna share that article in the comment section, guys. If you get time, look at that as an opportunity. Like, if you look at the abundance mindset, it will always say one door closes, another door opens. There's always opportunity out there for everyone.
I think we've seen it in a few businesses, like even the likes of local, like Brewdog, for example. Brewdog, other distillers, alcohol production companies, they all turn to making sanitizer, and some of them done it for really, really good purposes, in terms of, like, I think Brewdog opened up their production facilities and they gave away sanitizer and all this kind of stuff. So, like, there is benefits to doing even that kind of stuff that will, in a sense, come back to you at a later stage.
Yeah, and then you realize that, hey, this is actually a really good cash, cow for the business, and there's no point of closing this now, because now you have a set system, growing, and you also have a nice customer base that has realized I don't have to depend on a certain region to send me these stuff, but I can have suppliers within my own country. Okay, that's brilliant. I'm loving the discussion so far, and now I'm gonna come to the buzz of the town. These last I would say 10 days is TikTok coming and entering the YouTube territory. So this was recently announced that TikTok's gonna start going because TikTok recently in the past few months announced that they will be doing, and they have been doing 3-minute videos. They went from
Yeah.
15-second videos to 30-second, then 60-second, now 3 minute, now to 10-minute long videos. How do you see this playing, and what are your first term impressions on this?
So it took me a while to even sign up to TikTok. I've already mentioned, you mentioned there as well. I do a podcast. It's on break at the moment, but the guy I do it with, he was on TikTok, and he was always giving out to me every week on the show to get on it, and I'm like, no, because I know I'm going to lose an hour of my day every single day, if not more. So now that they're starting to go a different style of content, I don't know. I'm not convinced yet, because that's not the content that I go to TikTok to consume. I will
Yeah,
go to watch 10-minute videos on YouTube. I will go to watch 10-minute videos on, if there's a documentary or small short films on Netflix or Disney Plus or any of those kind of Amazon, any of those kind of channels. But I am not on TikTok to watch a 10-minute video. And I think like if you even go back to the days of when Instagram TV launched, it still never fully took off. It's never, like, there is a little bit longer form videos now on the platform, but this whole idea of really long form content on that channel, it just didn't suit it. And I think the same is going to happen with TikTok. I think the people that are on TikTok to watch the quick couple of second videos, or a few second videos, that's what they're there to consume. The younger audience is obviously more prevalent on the platform. So I think
yeah,
it's going to annoy people, but
yeah,
the other side of things, they have to try new things. Just make sure they don't get it too wrong, otherwise it'll annoy people. But
yeah.
it's like it's how they use it, I suppose, and it's how they promote it. But if it's just literally you're clicking on, next thing it's a 10-minute video, I don't think personally it's going to work.
Yeah.
I think it's going to annoy a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I was because Twitter is my somehow research tool because I only use Twitter to just skim through the sentiment of people rather than post anything. Because for me, TikTok is not the best social media platform unless you're looking at news or getting the trending topics. Just
Yeah,
to because a lot of times it can get heated, and I don't think that is the right medium, at least for me. There's a lot of sentiment which is of the same mindset, like, hey, I don't use TikTok for this, I don't log on to TikTok for a 10-minute video, I hardly see a 3-minute video on TikTok. And I think it's basically coming from a consumer behavior where a lot of people, like last month somebody told me, and I never realized this, it has been happening to all of us, but we don't realize that we live in a world where a movie trailer would have a 4-second hook before that plays. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, yeah, I've never realized this, but we are getting the audience in such short attention spans that a 5-second hook or 4-second hook will be played before they actually show you the Spider-Man movie trailer, because the trailers are not engaging enough and the movies are also changing, and the way now movies are designed, the lighting, the sound, everything is just constantly moving in movies as well. This is one of those things. I was also trying to understand, do you think this is how every brand or product has a lifeline? So it initially starts, then it goes through a certain timeline or entire life journey where it is initially creating attention. So TikTok has done that very well. It has now realized that the attention span and all the other mediums trying to replicate their formula, they're all becoming the same. So they have to advance and balance their I would say approach. They're bringing long form content. They're bringing podcast extracts. They're bringing other areas which are like science related, learning related. But are they, because do you think, are they making the same mistake that Instagram did back in 2018, 2019, where they lost a major share of the market by going all in with IGTV, and 2 years later saying IGTV is not, something that we're supporting, and the app will disappear in about 2 months' time.
Yeah, I definitely think they like it's the simple thing. You can't be all things to everybody, and that works with the platforms. Now, Instagram over the years have been the best of all platforms to take a feature that another platform has done well, mold it, and then run with it. Do you know? So we've seen like when the intro stories, they took that from Snapchat. It took Snapchat a few months, near a year, I think, to build up the usage of stories. Whereas when Instagram launched it, it just went through the roof.
Yeah.
But they've gotten so many wrong as well. You know, like even they combated TikTok by introducing Reels. It was quite clunky. I still think it's a little bit clunky compared to that of TikTok. But I think, as you said, like, you know, you go to specific platforms to consume specific type of content, and
Yeah.
I just think straight away it's built in people's mindsets of what TikTok is. It's almost like trying to turn around now and putting the TikTok content on LinkedIn. You're going to annoy people, do you know?
Yeah.
So that's not what it's for, and that mindset, it would take an awful lot to change it. But the problem is, by the time they change it, it's going to be a different audience on the platform because something else is going to come along to take its place. Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's basically what's going to happen. That if they don't get it right on the first go, no, it could work. It could be a major success. Personally, I just don't see it because of the audience that's there. They don't want 10 minutes videos, so they have to really get it right the first go. Otherwise, another platform is just going to swoop in and take its place.
Yeah, and because this is a big advantage to people that already have a lot of content. They have had 1 million followers on, because what people don't realize is the biggest social media influencers now are people that started creating content 10 years ago. So Joe Rogan and Gary Vee and all these people that have so much content that the content creator that is the biggest TikTok influencer right now, that was only a TikTok rock star, their sentiment's bad because now they know that the minute they start giving 10-minute videos out, Joe Rogan's going to bring their entire library to TikTok. Gary Vee is going to bring their entire library to TikTok. And it's also very complicated. It's a big challenge for somebody that only did a 5-second entertaining video or 15-second dance to consume or retain audience's attention for 10 minutes. And for me, I would say it's something where I'm seeing that, as I've been on TikTok for the last few months, just to understand that as a platform, because my thesis has been that TikTok's search engine is doing brilliant compared to all the other social media platforms. If I have to compare two platforms for search engine, I would have always given it to Pinterest and YouTube before. But now, if you start searching for something, the content you like, mostly the search is accurate. You don't find the kind of content you would have wanted. I think they have to figure out a way how they will try and either bring non-vertical videos to the platform, which is long-term, and then bring in the rotate functionality into it. But I do see that this might become the game changer and bring a lot more creators on the platform, bringing their library up, in value, in enrichment. Yeah, it's going to be a very frustrating mix for the consumer that came to the platform for that. But I think it's going to be it will be a very entertaining thing, because for me, I think due to the search functionality, the younger audience they have, and how things play down, TikTok might make the best decision by integrating maybe the right campaigns, or making it easier for the audiences to maybe have two segments. Like, you guys want your style of TikTok, you keep your style of TikTok. You can go TikTok long form within the app and get a complete different experience. But how it's done will change, I would say, the experience for the consumer.
I think that might upset people, to be honest, because if you think about it, like if you have your phone like that and you're just constantly scrolling that on TikToks, next thing you have to do one video like that and you're back to this way and you're back to that way, that to me that's going to annoy people even more. Do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, take for example, we talked there already about going to a platform specifically for the content is on that platform. I personally like the idea when you talked about Joe Rogan there, when Spotify were talking about the idea of hosting the videos for podcasts or shows up on Spotify, and they
Yeah.
played around with it. I don't think they ever did in the end, but I know Joe Rogan did have some videos up there. His whole library, I think, was up there. And I really like this idea that you could watch it all on the one platform, and this and that. Then I thought about it after, and I'm like, it's not going to work, because the reason for Spotify is you put your podcast or your track or your music song on, and you're bopping away to the pop tunes, but you put the phone into your pocket, or you put it away and you don't look at it. And similar then to like YouTube, right? If you were doing the same on YouTube, I go on to watch Joe Rogan or any of these podcasts on YouTube, or I'm looking at a concert live on YouTube, I'm wanting to watch it. Whereas if you go and pay for YouTube Premium, you get the option to minimize it and put it in your pocket. But the majority of people just don't even bother with it, because they know that already when they go to YouTube, they want to watch it. That's what it's there for. It's giving you the channel. So say, for example, like this episode, like, if it was on Spotify, I know already I'm listening to it without the video. If I'm going to YouTube, I want to watch it with the video. Majority of people.
That is.
So I think. Sorry.
No, that's a very fair point. And David, the way now you put it, I actually would say that I would agree with you, because even though I loved watching Joe Rogan's podcast, not listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, the minute it moved to Spotify, I never watched a video of that podcast. It kind of made me or forced me into moving to audio. I would say retention for the Joe Rogan podcast, but I've not watched a single video after that, because I was like, oh, so he is moving there. Let's follow that channel. But Spotify for me is exactly, I can understand for these brands that have been there for a decade. I don't know if I can ever start using TikTok as my next YouTube, because YouTube is my go-to search engine. And I would go to TikTok for a number of my trend collections, what I want to do. TikTok is also, I think, one of the best apps when it comes to, like, my thesis on TikTok is one of the best apps to help content creators create content, engaging content with the least effort possible. A lot of people will hate me for it. I've been creating content for almost like 5 years now. It will allow you to create content on a daily, daily video or something. You can create content with the least amount of effort, but I want to see what they do. It will be interesting to see how they help creators create 10-minute long videos. But I completely understand your point that if you start rotating your phone this and this and this, all the time, you will get annoyed. It is something very simple, but it will change your experience. And it's always easier to do this than, move your phone around for every second video. That's a very fair point. Now, the last segment of our show, this is usually the segment where I will ask you I'll give you 6 different categories. You can skip one, and each category will force me to pull out a card from the deck, and it's going to be a question the card deck will choose for me. So I have categories of entrepreneurship, random, the future, the past, relationships, and self. So to start with the first 2, let's start with, do you want to go for future or past first?
Go for past.
Okay, let's start with the past. So this right here, clicking 1. Okay. Time you successfully made a hard decision. The time that you successfully made a hard decision about anything in the past.
Like probably the most recent of my past decisions would have been going out on my own. It's not something that anyone should ever take lightly, because you kind of lose your security and and in the marketing world, I suppose, when you go out on your own, if you've built up a little bit of a name for yourself in working with specific companies, or you're attached to a company, once you go out on your own, you kind of almost lose that. And it's another area of trying to keep your name in the loop and your name fresh. So anyone that's ever going out on their own, that's something to think about, specifically in marketing. It's something to think about. So that was probably the hardest, but never mind all that. More so on the personal level of going out on your own is obviously security. I've a mortgage, wife, 2 dogs, so we have to keep all that going, so it's the security of having the paycheck every week, but then making that decision is a good decision in my books, because it gives me the flexibility and gives me a bit of authority over what I want to do in my day to day, which is good.
Yeah. And look, I would always say that for me, I have been there, and I've actually decided to step back into, having a 9 to 5 and having my kitchen connected with a job. So I have that certainty and security. So it definitely is a very courageous move. All the very best with that. And keep us all in the loop. If you ever need anything, just reach out. We're all there to support you, because you have an amazing, I would say, community on LinkedIn. And we always look forward to the interesting work that you're doing. Moving from the past, David, let's move towards the future. And my question from the future, or the perspective of the future for you, is the fun weekend retreats that you're planning with your friends soon.
I am currently in the middle of planning axe throwing for a couple of my friends that we're going to get together hopefully at the end of the month. We're looking at axe throwing more so probably to get rid of frustration, and then go for some food after a proper guys' day out of axe throwing we're looking at. So yeah,
Amazing,
never done it before. That's one thing I'm actually, funny enough you say, I was actually only asking, I'm already interested today. So yeah, that's going ahead.
Amazing. So the next two to choose from is entrepreneurship or random. Which one would you pick first?
Go entrepreneurship.
Let's go entrepreneurship for you, David. I think we all know this one. So the jobs that will not exist in the next 10 years, David.
The jobs. That's a tough one.
So these are all opinion based, so it doesn't have to be factually correct. What are the jobs that you think in the next 10 years won't be here?
I'm unfortunately looking at a lot of, now being replaced, but I'm looking at a lot of old school corner shops, retail units, all that kind of stuff. We don't see a lot. But what I am seeing, and why it came to mind is I was only speaking to one today, was we are seeing a surge in artisan stores, gourmet food stores that are supporting local businesses, local food and drink producers. We're seeing a little bit of a rise in those setting up. But unfortunately, your regular news agents will say that sell your papers, your smokes and your drinks and that kind of stuff. I think we're going to see a die off of them completely over the next. It's not really a one related to business or marketing, but marketing specifically. But that's one that I feel is going to die out.
Yeah, that's a very good answer, because I've personally seen the same trend. Like in different locations, different trends are already happening. But if the job does not require a certain level of cognition when it comes to like thinking, decision making, analyzing something, and making a decision which a machine cannot take, you're in a very safe place. But everything else, because I moved from Australia in 2017, and it is now just 5 years. And 5 years back, they already had Domino's stores, which were completely automated, not a single person running the pizza store. Drones were delivering pizzas. There was a machine car delivering pizzas. And that was for me, I was like, why am I working over here when they're scaring me, giving me the future sense that there's nobody running the store. There's nobody delivering the store pizzas. There's nobody, even taking the route of the road. These are now being delivered by machines flying through New Zealand. And that was where I was like, okay, what makes them tick? And it was the AI bot that they installed, which started my, interest in like, hey, I think tech is something that I'm very passionate about. Took a little pay cut and switched my industry. It was a very tough decision for me as well, but I transitioned from retail fast food into tech jobs. Started from the way, first job, first level as well. Then, went my way. But for me, that was also future proofing because I saw the trend happening in front of me, and I was not willing to wait till the jobs go out, and then I have to start looking at what are my skills that I can transfer. So now coming back to the next one, which is going to be completely random. So let's see what this one is. That one is, oh, this is something which I have already been on top. So I think my shuffling skills need to improve. The products that make you smile that you have in the house. It has to be a product that makes you smile that you have in the house.
I always kind of go to food for this one. It's always food for me, enjoyment out of food. The last year and a half of working in the coffee industry, I kind of got a different appreciation, I'd say, for good quality coffee. So I suppose I kind of got a bit of an understanding into that world. So, I kind of make coffee differently at home. That gives me a smile every time I do it. To try it different ways. There's so much involved in it. So, yeah, probably food and drink for me. Just because I've been working in it, I understand it. I enjoy new experience. I talked already about the artisan stores and trying new products from local businesses. Always get a joy out of that.
Nice. Okay, so now we have two segments, and you can skip one and answer one. So it's relationships or self.
Go for relationships.
Let's go relationships. And we have the question for David, which says, things you want to say to dash. You have to insert the person's name. So it has to be a certain person and something that you want to say to them. So it can be any relationship that you have been wanting to say something. You don't even have to mention like the person's name. I would say there are things that you want to mention to a certain relationship.
Oh, that's a tough one. So I spoke there about organizing events, and I suppose there's a back reason to that. And I won't say anyone's name, but if I was to say something to that person, I'm just going to say it's going to be okay. Simple.
Okay. Okay. No, that's good. David, it has been lovely having this chat with you. I think there's so many absolute amazing gems in this conversation for myself, for all the viewers and listeners that will be looking at these clips or also the full version of it. I also wanted to mention that there has been things that I've gotten to learn in regards to marketing from you, especially the point of view where we're discussing on niching down if you're a small business on one or two mediums. So thanks for sharing your advice, your expert opinion on these. I also wanted to just before closing give you the mic so you can share what is your top advice for youngsters that will be joining the marketing industry as their first job. What is your advice for them?
The main advice I'd have for anyone, it's a fantastic industry to get involved in, but put in, if you put in, you're going to get something out of it. So it is an industry you need to work hard and get involved in. The biggest piece of advice I'd ever give to anyone is, we've already talked about it here, is build up a bit of a network, a support bubble, a community of people that you can work with or work alongside or toss ideas off. So getting involved, like we haven't been able to really in the last 2 years, get involved in events or networking events or business marketing events. So they're all starting to come back now. And they're being took off Zoom and they're being put back into person. And get into those and get your face in front of people and ask questions. And that's probably the main thing. I would be active. Don't just if you want to, as I said, there's a difference between working and building a career. If you want to build a career or build a name, you have to work for it. It's not going to be handed to you.
Yeah. Solid advice again. Thanks for that, David. Guys, I'm going to sum this up over here. It has been a wonderful conversation. For the new folks joining the marketing industry, marketing is a lot of things, from research to social media to digital to billboards to leafleting to customer experience. There is a lot to explore in this. If you have decided by the looks of your closest friends or your best friend's sister that they work in marketing and it excites you, try and explore more. Try and get an internship, work with people in that field. You have to get your feet wet to realize that this is for you or not. And before you take that decision, all the very best. All of you that have listened, shared your comments. Thank you for joining us, and have a lovely week ahead. Thanks to you, David. And yeah, see you around. Have a lovely evening.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone.